BEO Lil Kenny didn't just slide for Young Dolph. The streets are saying he went all the way to the top and took out Yo Gotti's own brother, Big Juke, the man allegedly behind the $100,000 bounty that started all of this. If what people believe is true, this was not random. This was precise, this was personal, and this was a long time coming. So stay tuned, because what happened in Memphis will change the way you see everything. Yo, what's good, fam? Today we are going deep into one of the most discussed stories in hip-hop right now. We are going to break down how this narrative started, why so many people believe it, what actually happened in the streets of Memphis, and what the facts say versus what the internet says. Because in a city where the music and the violence have always been connected, the line between what people believe and what can be proven has never been thinner. So let's get into it. To understand any of this, you have to understand who Young Dolph was. Adolph Robert Thornton Jr. was born in Chicago and raised in the Castalia Heights neighborhood of Memphis, Tennessee. He came up in one of the toughest parts of the city and eventually turned those experiences into music that resonated far beyond Tennessee. But what made Dolph different was his business mindset. In 2010, he founded Paper Route Empire, an independent label that gave him total creative and financial control. While other artists were signing over their masters, Dolph was building an empire. He signed his cousin Key Glock, put on Kenny Muni, Big Moochie Grape, Jay Fizzle, and Snoop bands, and built a roster that represented the best of Memphis. Albums like King of Memphis and Rich Slave, which peaked at number 4 on the Billboard 200, proved he was winning on his own terms. By the early 2020s, Dolph was one of the most respected independent artists in the game. But running an independent empire in a city where another major label was already established was never going to be peaceful. Because on the other side of Memphis stood Yo Gotti and Collective Music Group. Yo Gotti, born Mario Centel Cotton Mims, had been building his name in Memphis since the late 90s. By the time the 2010s came around, CMG had become one of the most powerful independent labels in rap, with artists like Black Youngster, Moneybagg Yo, and eventually Glorilla under its umbrella. Gotti was a Memphis legend, and he had earned that title through years of grinding. But his path and Dolph's path were always going to collide. The friction reportedly began in 2014, when Yo Gotti attempted to sign Young Dolph to CMG. Dolph turned him down. It was a clean refusal, no drama attached, and Dolph explained it publicly by saying he didn't want to latch on to someone else's movement when he was building his own. That decision was the right one for Dolph's career, but it planted the seed of a rivalry that would grow into something much more dangerous than rap beef. By 2016, things were no longer subtle. Dolph went on social media and called Gotti out directly, accusing him of being a hater, of pressing charges, and of using his position in Memphis to undermine anyone who didn't fall in line. He called him Ho Gotti in front of the entire internet and didn't flinch. Around the same time, Black Youngster, one of Gotti's CMG artists, posted videos walking through Dolph's neighborhood, heavily armed, looking for a confrontation. The tension was no longer just musical. Then came February 2017. Dolph released Play With Yo Bitch, a direct diss track aimed at Gotti that became one of the most talked about songs in Memphis rap history. In the music video, Dolph hired an actor to play Gotti, and the disrespect was calculated in public. The track went gold. Within days of the music video dropping, Dolph's bulletproof SUV was shot at over 100 times while he was driving in Charlotte, North Carolina. He survived because of the vehicle's armor. The van used in the shooting was later traced back to a rental by Black Youngster, though no charges were ever filed against Youngster in connection with it. Gotti responded with his own track, Don't Beef With Me, but it did nothing to cool the temperature. Less than 7 months later, in September 2017, Dolph was shot again outside the Lowe's Hollywood Hotel in Los Angeles. This time there was no bulletproof SUV. He was shot multiple times and hospitalized in critical condition. A Yo Gotti associate named Corey McClendon was arrested on suspicion of attempted murder, but was ultimately released without charges. Dolph survived again. By the time the next few years passed, things appeared to have quieted down on the surface. Both camps focused on their music, but anyone paying close attention knew the quiet was not the same as peace. The tension between PRE and CNG had never actually been resolved. Then came November 17th, 2021. Dolph was in his hometown of Memphis, inside Makeda's homemade butter cookies on Airways Boulevard in the Orange Mound neighborhood. He was there picking up cookies for his mother. That detail matters. He was not in a club, not at a studio session, not at some event where danger might be expected. He was in a neighborhood cookie shop buying something for his mom. And that is where he was murdered. Two masked gunmen pulled up in a stolen white Mercedes-Benz and opened fire into the store. Young Dolph was shot multiple times and died on the floor inside Makeda's. He was 36 years old. The shooters fled the scene, and the Mercedes was later discovered outside an abandoned house in Memphis's Orange Mound neighborhood. The location of that abandoned house would become significant. The investigation moved quickly in some ways and slowly in others. In January 2022, two men were indicted for the murder. The first was Justin Johnson, who had previously performed music under the name Straight Drop. The second was Cornelius Smith. Both were charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and additional firearms offenses. A third man, Hernandez Govan, was later charged as well, accused of being the one who ordered the hit and put the shooters in touch with the person who allegedly funded it. That abandoned house where the getaway car was found, it was right next door to Govan's house. The trials took years to play out. Justin Johnson's case finally went before a jury in September 2024, nearly 3 years after Dolph's death. And what came out in that courtroom shook Memphis to its foundation. Cornelius Smith took the stand on the very first day of the trial and admitted to being one of the shooters. He described in detail how the murder was planned and executed. According to Smith's testimony, he and Justin Johnson had been approached by Hernandez Govan, who put them in contact with Anthony Mims. Anthony Mims was better known as Big Juke, and Big Juke was Yo Gotti's brother. Shelby County Deputy District Attorney Paul Hagerman laid it out in his opening statement. According to prosecutors, Big Juke placed a $100,000 bounty on Young Dolph's life, $50,000 for each shooter, and Govan allegedly took $10,000 from each man's payout for making the introduction. Smith testified that Big Juke had offered the hit as a way to get signed to CMG, kill a pre-rapper, get a record deal. That was the alleged arrangement. The jury deliberated for roughly 4 hours and came back on September 26, 2024, with unanimous guilty verdicts on all counts. First-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, felon in possession of a firearm. Judge Jennifer Mitchell sentenced Justin Johnson to life in prison immediately. A month later, at a separate sentencing hearing, Johnson received an additional 35 years on top of his life sentence for the conspiracy conviction. Cornelius Smith, who cooperated with prosecutors and testified against Johnson, eventually pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 20 years without the possibility of parole. Hernandez Govan went to trial separately in 2025 and was found not guilty on August 21, 2025. The legal proceedings in the Young Dolph case concluded with those verdicts, but the story was far from over. Because Big Juke, the man prosecutors had named as the one who funded the hit, had already been dead for months before Justin Johnson's trial even began. Anthony Mims, Big Juke, was 47 years old when he was shot and killed on January 13, 2024. He was in Memphis, attending a repast following a relative's funeral. He and another man were outside the Perignon's Restaurant and Event Center on Winchester Road when shots rang out. Both men were hit and rushed to the hospital. Big Juke did not survive. Memphis police confirmed the shooting quickly. Officers in the area heard gunfire around 4:15 in the afternoon and drove to the location where they found both victims with multiple gunshot wounds. Surveillance cameras captured images of a vehicle believed to be connected to the shooting. Memphis police released those images publicly, hoping for tips. Despite that, by the time the Justin Johnson trial opened in September 2024, police still had no arrests, and by the summer of 2025, investigators were still telling reporters the same thing. No updates, ongoing investigation. Big Juke's final Instagram post made before his death read, "They don't want to face you, they want to snake you. Stay alert to stay alive, watch your back at all times." Whether that was a warning he saw coming or just a general post of something only he knew. But the timing left a lot of people reading into it. The reaction inside hip-hop was immediate and intense. Yo Gotti lost his brother, and anyone who had been following the PRE-CMG story knew exactly what people on the internet were going to say the moment the news broke. Because Big Juke had not been some private figure. He had been publicly present in the CMG world for years, attending events, supporting artists, and according to industry sources, involved in scouting talent and helping manage projects within the label. He was not a ghost in the background. He was front and center, seen at shows, seen with artists, seen in footage that circulated online. When prosecutors named him in opening statements of the Justin Johnson trial as the man who put a $100,000 price tag on Young Dolph's life, it transformed how the public understood him. He went from being Yo Gotti's brother to being the alleged architect of one of hip-hop's most devastating murders. And then, 9 months later, he was dead himself. When Big Juke was killed, the internet did not wait for police to identify suspects. It started drawing its own conclusions immediately, and those conclusions began circling around one name: BEO Lil Kenny. To understand why, you have to understand who BEO Lil Kenny is and where he fits into this story, because his background and his music made him a central figure in this narrative even before the online theories started flying. BEO Lil Kenny is a Memphis rapper whose real journey in music began around 2013 after a stint in juvenile detention. A friend pushed him to record his first track, Nightmare on King Drive, and something clicked. He recorded his debut album while incarcerated in federal prison, which eventually led to a deal with Quality Control Music, Pierre P. Thomas's label that has been home to artists like Lil Baby, Migos, and City Girls. It was while in the industry that Young Thug gave him the name BEO, standing for Being Eliminating Ops, a moniker that carried significant weight in the context of everything that would happen later. What made BEO Lil Kenny's position in this story so fascinating to the internet was his connection to Paper Route Empire. He was not just a random Memphis rapper, he was musically affiliated with PRE artists in a direct and visible way. He appeared as a featured artist on Kenny Muni's 2024 PRE project, The Blue Seasons, and its Super Deluxe Edition. Kenny Muni released a music video with BEO Lil Kenny for a track called Bodies and Bucks, which was released through Paper Route Empire. He also collaborated with Key Glock on a single called Whoop-De-Whoop. These are not distant associations. These are on-record musical collaborations with the artists who were closest to Young Dolph. And that combination, a rapper named Been Eliminating Ops, who is musically connected to PRE, who carries the energy of someone aligned with the Dolph side of Memphis, releasing tracks with names like Bodies and Bucks, and appearing alongside Key Glock was enough for the streets to start treating him as the central character in the biggest retaliation story Memphis has seen in years. Here is where the theory really takes shape. Think about what Big Juke represented. This was not just some random CMG associate. According to testimony presented at Justin Johnson's murder trial, Big Juke was the man who put up the $100,000 bounty on Young Dolph's life. He was the one who allegedly approached the shooters, offered them money and a record deal, and set the entire chain of events in motion that ended with Dolph dead on the floor of a cookie shop. In the eyes of the PRE side of Memphis, Big Juke was not just an enemy. He was the architect of the whole thing. And when he was shot and killed in January 2024, just months before a jury would convict Justin Johnson and hear all of that testimony in open court, the streets immediately started asking the same question. Who did this, and did they do it for Dolph? BEO Lil Kenny's name came up fast, and the reasons people pointed to him were not pulled out of thin air. His entire public image was built around being someone who moves on his ops. Young Thug gave him the name BEO, which stands for Being Eliminating Ops, before any of this happened. That name alone, in the context of Big Juke being the alleged op who got Dolph killed, felt like a statement to a lot of people. Then there were his pre-A connections. He had been in the studio with Key Glock. He appeared on Kenny Muni's pre-A project. He was not on the outside looking in. He was embedded with the people who loved Dolph most. And then Big Juke turns up dead, and BEO Lil Kenny starts dropping music. The diss records added a whole nother layer. After Big Juke's death, BEO Lil Kenny released music that people immediately started breaking down bar by bar. YouTube channels pulled up his lyrics and pointed to lines they read as direct references to Big Juke's killing. One video that went massively viral carried a title claiming Lil Kenny had dissed Big Juke in front of his own mother. The phrase "they downed his brother" tore through comment sections. Podcasts spent hours on it. The theory was no longer just a rumor. It had become a full documentary with BEO Lil Kenny as the main character. His social media activity during that period was watched obsessively. Posts, captions, likes, and even who he was seen with were analyzed by thousands of people looking for confirmation of what they already believed. Every piece of content he put out was run through the same filter. He slid for Dolph. He took out Big Juke. And now he is moving like he knows exactly what he did. Then came the arrest story. At some point in the period following Big Juke's murder, reports began spreading online claiming that BEO Lil had been arrested in connection with the killing. The story moved fast. Blog posts went up, YouTube videos went live. Social media amplified the claim before anyone had time to verify it. The narrative was already fully formed in a lot of people's minds, and an arrest report, however unverified, fit perfectly into the story they were telling. The problem was that BEO Lil had not been arrested for Big Juke's murder. The confusion appears to have stemmed from another individual with a similar name who had encountered law enforcement, and the names got blurred together in the chaos of online reporting where speed frequently beats accuracy. BEO Lil himself went on record to address the false arrest claims, responding publicly to the rumors that had put his name in connection with one of Memphis's most high-profile unsolved murders. But here's where it gets real. Once a narrative like this takes hold on the internet, a correction rarely travels as far as the original story. The arrest rumors circulated to millions of people. The debunking reached far fewer. And so the theory kept spreading, kept getting discussed on podcasts, kept generating YouTube videos, and kept pulling BEO Lil name into a conversation that official law enforcement had never confirmed he had any part in. Memphis police have maintained from the beginning that Big Juke's murder remains an open and unsolved investigation. As of the summer of 2025, officers were still telling the commercial appeal and other news outlets that there are no updates and that the case is ongoing. No charges have been filed. No suspects have been named publicly by law enforcement. Memphis Police Public Information Officer Teresa Carlson's response to press inquiries has consistently been the same. No updates at this time. This is an ongoing investigation. That matters, because there is a very real difference between what the internet believes and what the courts and law enforcement have established. The judicial process in the Young Dolph murder case produced convictions, produced testimony, produced verified facts that can be named and cited. The investigation into Big Juke's murder has not produced any of that publicly. What it has produced is a vacuum. And in hip-hop, a vacuum on a story this big does not stay empty for long. The online theories filling that vacuum are not random. They are built on a foundation of real context, which is part of what makes them so compelling and so dangerous at the same time. There really is a pre-CMG rivalry with a body count. Big Juke was really named by prosecutors as the man who funded Dolph's murder. BEO Lil really is connected to PRE artists and released music that many people interpret as victory laps over his ops. The name BEO really does stand for Being Eliminating Ops. These are real pieces of a real story, but connecting them into a specific conclusion about who killed Anthony Mims requires steps the public evidence has not supported. What this story reflects is something much bigger about how Memphis street politics and social media now feed each other. Memphis has always had its own codes, its own unwritten rules about how people respond when someone they love gets taken. For years, that stayed local. Hip-hop changed everything. When Dolph and Gotti turned their rivalry into music, they broadcast it to the world. And when the violence followed, millions of people were already watching. Social media turned every piece of it into content. Diss records got decoded, old posts got resurfaced, lyrics got analyzed line by line. What was once a local war became a live narrative that people all over the world were following in real time. And they were not passive. They were active, connecting dots, building timelines, and treating every new development as evidence in a case they had already made up their minds about. BEO Lil became the most talked about suspect in a murder that police have never publicly connected him to. His car was reportedly shot up in Memphis during this period, which only deepened the theory for people who believed he was now living inside the consequences of what he had done. And he kept making music, he kept posting, he kept moving, which for a lot of people watching from the outside was a statement all by itself. But here is what we actually know. Justin Johnson was convicted of Dolph's murder and is serving life plus 35 additional years. Cornelia Smith admitted to being the second shooter and is serving 20 years after cooperating with prosecutors. Hernandez Govan was acquitted. Prosecutors alleged Big Juke funded the $100,000 bounty. Big Juke was killed in January 2024, and his murder remains officially unsolved. BEO Lil has documented ties to pre-A artists, released music the streets interpreted as connected to that killing. and responded to false arrest rumors that spread virally. Memphis police have named no suspects publicly in Big Juke's death. Everything else is the internet at work. And the internet in 2024 and 2025 moves faster than truth, is louder than facts, and is more emotionally invested in the narrative than in the details that complicate it. The story of Young Dolph still has power because Dolph himself had power. He was a man who built something real, who loved his city, who turned down a $22 million label deal because he believed in what he was building more than he believed in someone else's check. He was picking up cookies for his mother on the day he was murdered. Not in a club, not in some dangerous situation he walked into, in a neighborhood cookie shop. That detail never stops hitting hard. His partner Mia J, his children, his family, Key Glock holding down PRE after losing his mentor and cousin, Kenny Muni saying what he learned under Dolph was to go get the money and nothing else. That is the legacy that keeps people emotionally invested in every development connected to his name. That is why this story will not die. Because Dolph deserved better, and the people who loved him know it. People are still looking for justice. Some of them are looking for it in courtrooms and conviction records. Some of them are looking for it in diss tracks, social media posts, and the movements of a Memphis rapper named Ben Eliminating Ops. And as long as Big Juke's murder stays officially unsolved, as long as Memphis police keep saying no updates, and the investigation remains ongoing, people are going to keep drawing their own conclusions. The silence from law enforcement has never stopped this story from moving. If anything, it has made it louder. Because when the system does not provide answers, the streets and the internet fill the gap together. Key Glock said it best when he talked about losing Dolph. He said everybody has a date. You can't run from it no matter what it is. You got to wake up, live your best life, and be prepared. Glock took over PRE and kept building. Kenny Muni kept dropping projects on the label with BEO Lil Kenny appearing on his releases. The machine kept moving even as the streets stayed combustible. Whether BEO Lil Kenny slid for Young Dolph is something the streets have already decided for themselves. What the courts and law enforcement have established is a much shorter story. Justin Johnson is in prison for the rest of his life. Cornelius Smith is locked up, but Big Juke's killer has never been officially named. And in that silence, in that gap between what people believe and what has been proven, BEO Lil Kenny's name continues to echo. The theory is not going anywhere. The music is not going anywhere. And Memphis is not finished with this story yet. Drop your thoughts in the comments and let us know what you think about everything going down in Memphis. And if you want more breakdowns like this one, click on the video on screen right now.